the nickelback Marcus Jones, and we'll break it down in the playbook later on. But the Patriots did put their number one corner on Aiyuk on a lot of snaps. And Brandon, frankly, didn't always win against him. On the one over the middle, it was a zone coverage, and they kind of dropped him just by virtue of the middle linebacker didn't get enough depth, and he was able to hit him for a big one through a zone. That's classic Brandon Aiyuk. I thought Brock tried to force it to him a couple of times, and obviously on the interception, when Brandon ran the over route from the right inside position out left, and he just did not see Jabril Peppers, that safety, who was lurking there. And again, with Aiyuk, he dropped back and he intercepted the ball. So they're not hitting the way they normally do. I don't know. I thought it would hit before, just watching them get ready for games. They appear to be together again. But in the playbook, we will break down that the threat of Brandon Aiyuk is opening up a lot of things for the Niner passing game. I thought the biggest play of the game was after New England cut the lead from 20-0 to 20-10. The very first play of the next series was a bang 8, a skinny post to Deebo Samuel. You don't often see Deebo run those kind of routes. He does not run verticals very often. But he got a matchup, and they wanted him to go out at the other corner, Jonathan Jones, who's 31 years of age now, and they wanted to attack him and the other Jones, the nickelback, who's smaller, and they attacked him with Jennings throughout the game. But the threat of Brandon Aiyuk on the other side had the safety come underneath on that deep dagger, the in-cut, the dig that Brandon Aiyuk ran, and they wound up leaving Jonathan Jones one-on-one with Deebo, and Deebo ran right by him, and Brock threw it 54 yards in the air. It was a hell of a throw. If it was 60 yards in the air or 57 yards in the air, Deebo probably scores on that bang 8. It's right over the top, a little bit behind him, and he got him on the hip. But as John's saying, there's other things besides the targets, the catches. He's still blocking well, and the other team still does respect him. Christian Gonzalez matched up with him more than Deebo Samuel or Jawan Jennings last week, and that's their number one, shutdown corner. And also they tilted some underneath coverage, just worrying about all those in-cut routes that Aiyuk is so great for. So I know it's, we're in a fantasy football era, and it's been like that for 30 years or so. And people want numbers, and that's all they look at. And the bottom line, he has 13 catches for 167 yards. He's averaging 12.8 yards a catch. Last year it was 17.9. And the Niners are driving the ball down the field. So if you just look at it, you're saying his numbers aren't as good, he's not playing as well, what's wrong with the guy? But when you analyze it, the other team still does respect Brandon Aiyuk. You can see that, and it is opening up big plays for Aiyuk's teammates in the passing game.
And one more thing before we talk to Matty Maiocco in about 10 minutes. Ricky Pearsall was mentioned by both guys, just saying he's making progress, not quite ready yet. So might be a week, might be a couple of weeks, but it sounds like he's making progress.
Yeah, he looks good. He's working out, and they got the catapult system on him where they're able to track his movements and the GPS. They can see how fast he's running, and his brakes are there. He had to shut it down for a long time after getting shot on Labor Day Saturday, August 31st. He was in a street fight. I mean, you read the police reports,
Yep.
and it was. He got down and had to pull out some wrestling moves. He was grappling, so it's not just where the bullet went and out the other side. His body got beat up, and he had to shut it down for a long time. And on top of that, he had the shoulder injury before that and the hamstring. So I don't know if cardiovascularly he's back up to where he was. He's got to build back up, and they're tracking it all. They know every step. They don't want him popping a hammy now, working too hard. And it's interesting what Ed McCaffrey said about Christian is that, this bilateral Achilles tendonitis he has is a product of Christian just working too hard, where you won't give yourself a day off even in the off season. You don't go on a honeymoon after you get married and in New England, and you wind up developing tendonitis on one leg and then the other. And for Ricky, and these guys are pros at it, Dustin Perry and Dustin Little and the performance staff, you can't push them to come back too quick. You got to do what you got to do, and they track it all. They chronicle everything he does. So he's working, and I'm obviously not in this game, and you'd like to have him because if you don't have Chris Conley and Jacob Cowing, you're light in the wide receiver room. They're going to have to do something, I think, on Saturday if those two guys can't play. And then you got the short week the next week playing on Thursday, so nobody's practicing next week to get ready for Seattle. Those are all walkthroughs and really nothing. You just kind of line up and go play. So then you would look at, could he make his NFL debut the following game on October the 20th against Kansas City? And wouldn't that be ironic? The team that thought the Niners could not beat man coverage in the Super Bowl, and they won a lot of snaps. L'Jarius Sneed's no longer there. He is now a Tennessee Titan. They do have Trent McDuffie and the young cornerbacks on that team, John. But Spags basically said, we're going to get up in you. We're going to blitz you, overload you, and your guys can't beat man. And a lot of snaps, they won. Ricky Pearsall can beat man. So will they find that out if he does play October the 20th when KC comes in, and then Dallas the week after that? Because Ricky Pearsall, when he's up and he's got his full lung capacity, he can beat press man coverage or any coverage. So it would be a great time to get him in the lineup if it is that game against Kansas City.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like you said, this is one of the reason they drafted him probably mainly is beating man coverage. So there's the latest on what's going on with the 49ers. Let's get some more insight. Injuries. His 5 that he's going to be looking at against the Cardinals. Short week. Then you got Seattle on Thursday. Will that play into any of these injuries and who plays and who doesn't? We'll ask Matt Maiocco, our 49ers insider, next on all those issues. It's Pop and Lund on the Sports Leader.
Sure, KNBR's got you covered on game day with Greg in the booth and John hosting pre and post. But NBC Sports Bay Area's Matt Maiocco has your Niners news all week long. Here's Papa London Maiocco on the Sports Leader.
Matt will join us momentarily. They're just getting the stream worked out, and Matt Maiocco will join us. And, of course, you read all his great stuff at NBC Sports Bay Area. You listen and watch to the 49ers Talk podcast, and he'll join us momentarily to give us the latest on everything. By the way, I was just, during the break, watching Marshawn Lynch on Pat McAfee for game day this weekend. Oh, boy. That's
He's dropping F-bombs?
Oh, my God. ESPN's owned by Disney. Hi, kids! And Marshawn just F
So
this,
McAfee's not in Berkeley yet. When's he coming to Berkeley?
I guess he's not here today. Usually he does the Friday show from that spot, so I don't know what he's got going on, but usually he's here. But anyway, Marshawn said on Saturday that it was going to be cloudy. Cloudy. Yeah, I'm sure it is. For him, it's going to be cloudy. But anyway, that's what's going on there. Get there bright and early. I think it opens up at like 4 in the morning or something. It's insane for that show. But let's get to the 49ers.
Ever, huh? Game day
first
coming
time
to Berkeley.
ever. Taking him on Miami. Matt Maiocco's got things to do. I don't know that he's going to be getting over to Berkeley at like 4 in the morning. He joins us courtesy of the UMA guest line to talk some Niners. How are you?
I'm doing great. And no, I will not be there at 4 in the morning.
So.
However, in a major upset, a buddy of mine reached out and said, hey, you want to go to the Cal game? Of course, he texted me this on Thursday and said, hey, do you want to go to the Cal game tomorrow? And I thought, yeah, that sounds fun. That Cal would have a Friday night game. So I said, yeah, sure, count me in. And then I look at the schedule. I'm like, it's not Friday, you idiot. It's Saturday. So
exactly.
I've committed to it, so I think I'll still go for a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
What time is St. Mary's playing football on Saturday?
They, they have not lost a football game in decades.
Since Brent Jones was catching touchdown passes from John Jajari, I think.
There you go. I think he was Santa Clara, of course.
Yeah.
Santa Clara. Yeah.
Speaking of St. Mary's, would you rather have Corbin Burns or Blake Snell?
Well, Corbin Burns, of course.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He might be a giant. Just saying.
I saw him pitch at St. Mary's. They had a good team.
Yeah.
Goslin, he was there on that team too.
Yeah. Tony Goslin of the Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could come down to that. They need some more pitching, and I don't know if they're going to trade Blake Snell. Anyway, I know you're a Giants guy. All right, let's get into some 49ers stuff. First and foremost, that's jumped kind of the forefront here is what if Fred Warner can't play, especially with all the injuries. Curtis Robinson is out, and D. Winters is hobbling around, and John Lynch this morning was telling the morning guys that maybe Tatum Bethune was going to be the guy. What do they do without Fred?
It's just kind of to figure it out. They have those guys ready to step in. I mean, D. Winters is banged up. He said, Flanagan fouls and Warner. So, yeah, it's getting down on the depth chart. Obviously, Devondre Campbell will be out there. But if with Warner and Flanagan fouls, that's two of your starting three base linebackers. And then it's Bethune. They bring in Jalen Graham. So he has a lot of experience as far as just practicing with this team, being here all of last season and then all of training camp this year. So, yeah, it's just kind of figure things out. Adjust on the fly and see what you can do. But I'm trying to think. I don't know that they would have anybody on the practice squad that would necessarily be somebody that they could bring up and stick out there on the field. So it's Jalen Graham. I mean, that's the reason that they went out and raided the Commanders practice squad and bring Jalen Graham back. So yeah, I mean, it's not a great situation, especially when you look at what the Cardinals are going to try to do. They're going to try to run the ball, so the 49ers have to be sound in their front seven. And then when Kyler Murray escapes the pocket and runs around, you're going to need some speed out there on the second level to keep his yards to a minimum. So it's not an ideal situation.
Yeah, and then over on the offensive side, George Kittle's in the same situation with the rib injuries. Fred's got the ankle. I think they're both going to try to play on Sunday, but we'll see if they're going to be able to. But it's not just George. Chris Conley, oblique injury. Jacob Cowling's got a shoulder. I mean, the Niners may be very light in the wide receiver room with Ricky Pearsall not up and practicing yet, Matt. So does John Lynch make the Devontae Adams trade sometime today or tomorrow? Although he's battling a concussion, so I'm not sure he can play. But they need Devontae Adams right now, Maiocco.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I'm absolutely horrified that they haven't made that trade yet. I mean, you got to trade like Debo and Aiyuk to get Devontae Adams at this point, don't you? And throw in Juwan Jennings while you're at it.
Sure.
No, I don't think that's happening for a number of different reasons. I don't think that is happening. However, I would say that, if you can't have Devontae Adams on your team, what's the next best scenario? Probably bumping up Trent Taylor from the practice squad. So that would be a move that I could see if Cowing can't go, because they'll need someone to handle punts. And so that's a possibility. And then Trent Taylor can play the slot. But I'm sure, have you guys been talking a lot about Devontae Adams? Yeah.
No, we had Mike Silver on yesterday because Mike, he's in New York trying to sell his book. But he wrote a big piece. It's funny, I texted you, Lombardi, and Mike Silver, and I got the exact answer from each of the three guys that I thought. Silver was all in on it, writing a piece. Lombardi said, not financially feasible. You went, no way in hell. But that's something Kyle may think of, and John would say no. So, yeah, you guys gave me the exact answers I thought, knowing all three of you so well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Devontae Adams is, what does that trade look like? The 49ers are at a spot now. I mean, you wouldn't include Aiyuk in that trade, obviously, because you just signed him to this huge deal, and you're going to give up after 4 games to bring someone in who's 5 years older and who doesn't know the system and who has huge cap numbers the next 3 years, whereas Aiyuk's cap number is very low this year, next year, and the year after. So his big money doesn't kick in on the cap until 2027. So if you bring in Devontae Adams now, I mean, you're making sacrifices down the road with who you can sign. And, because Purdy is going to give the big contract this next offseason. So I just don't see why it would fit. And when you think about it, 49ers wide receiver position, that's like the least of their concerns. Their number 3 wide receiver entered this week as the number 4 wide receiver in the entire NFL. So, I mean, of all the positions that you would look at, I would think that with the top 3 receivers that they have and Ricky Pearsall waiting in the wings and maybe will be active in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that to me just seems like not an area of weakness that the 49ers would even think about addressing.
Matt Maiocco joining us. The other thing, I'd even take it a step further. Not only is it the finances, not only is it that I don't even think Mark Davis would take calls from the 49ers, but the third thing is they've got all this cap space. I think that they're going to look at what they have, defensive tackle depth, linebackers. It's not guaranteed that Greenlaw is going to be great when he comes back. Maybe they need that. Maybe they need a veteran safety. Maybe they need offensive line help. I mean, there's, like you just said, there's a number of positions. If they did it on a short-term basis, obviously they don't want to take money into next year. But some of these teams are going to start falling out of it, I think, and they're going to possibly need to make some moves. So that, like you said, the least of their problems, they might have the best 3 deep wide receivers, and if you have Pearsall and if the hype is right on him, then they might have the deepest 4 wide receivers in all the NFL.
Yeah, and they do have a lot of cap room, and that's something that they've done where they're far under the cap, but they're looking toward the future with that because unused cap space from 1 year rolls over into the next year, and you don't know what the roster is going to look like. Here we are in week 5. You don't know what it's going to look like in week 7 or 8. I mean, with rosters constantly changing and churning and injuries and what might look like a strength 1 week is a weakness a week later. So you never know. And, if as a roster stands right now, I wouldn't envision the 49ers doing anything. I would kind of sense that they would stick with what they got and roll with it. But, other stuff happens on the defensive line or offensive line or whatnot. They just want to keep that flexibility to be able to move if the circumstances dictate them making a move.
Yeah, and Mike kind of acknowledged, Mike Silver. Mike just writes columns for the sake of, having a conversation. He realized it's unlikely. And I think the Ravens could be involved here in Pittsburgh as well. But in any event, the events of and Mike did reference this, and he asked Kyle after the win on Sunday about it. The events of a week ago today's practice, where Brandon Aiyuk showed up with red shorts on as opposed to black ones, and there was video because it happened when you guys were all out there to see it, and then Kyle made him, switch. Just where is Brandon Aiyuk at, do you think, after the hold in got so public and going back and forth and signing late, and his numbers, at least as far as, targets thrown and receptions, are not what they were last year? I know he's a slow starter, but he's been a slow starter this year in a lot of regards, and then he has that video get out there. Just, what are your thoughts on the first quarter of the year for BA this year, Matty?
Well, it's funny you should say that. As soon as I hang up with you guys, I will post a video from practice yesterday in which Kyle Shanahan and Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel. It's like the old Sasquatch video from where was that? From Willow
Bigfoot?
Creek or someplace.
Bigfoot?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like from far across the field, but those three guys were just kind of hanging out, and you watch them and you see the body language, and you certainly don't get the sense that anything is amiss with those three guys. But what you hear with the 49ers is that Brandon Aiyuk is doing the right things. He is. The first week was rough, but what people see, what I see, what most of our listeners see is the stat sheet. It's the what's the bottom line? 2 catches, 3 catches, 48 yards, whatever the case may be. But what his teammates see and what he sees and what the coaching staff sees are all 64 snaps. And it's, what did he do with the routes that were called, whether the ball goes to him or not. That's one thing. We always, he should have made that catch. And, there have been some catches that he should have made, of course. But I think that he's judged inside the building a lot less on just the bottom line stat sheet than we do that. I mean, we just look at the numbers, and the numbers tell you one thing. The numbers tell you that last season he had 4 games the entire year, 4 out of 17 games in which he caught fewer than 50 yards receiving, had 50 yards, or I should say less than 50 yards in a game, only 4 times the entire year. And his 5th least game was 50 on the button. This year, he already has 4 games of fewer than 50 yards receiving. So the production is down. I don't think that should be a surprise at all. I mean, that was the easiest thing in the world to predict, that he would not be able to match the 1,342 yards he had receiving last year. But I don't get the sense that anybody here is so disappointed that he's playing horribly, because I know there was a stat last week, the week before, that he was gaining more separation than just about any receiver in the league. But then last week I saw where he was gaining less, almost less yards of separation than a lot of receivers in the league. So I think it's a week-to-week thing, but it doesn't seem to me that, the outside public outcry over his lack of production is anything that is a concern to the coaching staff or even a concern to Brandon Aiyuk at this point.
Matt Maiocco, we're talking as we get you ready for the Cardinals and the 49ers at Levi's Stadium. It's kind of a convenient time because we're 1 month into this thing, and now we're into October, and Steve Young says it. A lot of people say it. Hey, now the preseason is in September. So if you looked at the schedule and said Jets, Vikings, Rams, Pats, you might say it's 3-1. They're 2-2. We didn't know Minnesota was going to be that good. That's a painful loss against the Rams. They probably should have had. But they've got to shore things up rather quickly because, I don't think the Cardinals are great, but it's an interdivision game. You might be missing some guys. Kyler Murray can run some magic like he's done before. It's a short turnaround to Seattle, and then it's the Chiefs and Cowboys. So do you expect everything to tighten up, special teams, despite all these injuries? So specifically special teams got to get better against the run defensively. How do you look at this thing right now going into October?
Yeah, I mean they're not where they want to be, but it's not like this killer blow that they're 2-2. There is plenty of room for improvement. I think when you play so many young guys, I mean, they had 8 rookies on the field for that game against the Patriots. I think it's only understandable that, or at least logical, that whenever you play so many young guys, the area of the team that's going to suffer the most is special teams, because a lot of those young guys have to play a lot on special teams, and a lot of those young guys have never played special teams. They're often the stars of their college teams, so they're not out there playing in the kicking game all that much. But, they should get better. They got to clean up the illegal shifts, the pre-snap penalties. There have been, just too many mistakes in all aspects, offense, defense, special teams, having two touchdowns called back due to penalties. One might have been, pretty nitpicky. But they should improve. I mean, I guess all teams should improve as the season goes on as far as ironing out those wrinkles. But, this is a difficult 4-game stretch, and this is clearly the easiest on paper of the 4 games in this second grouping of 4 games that the 49ers play. So, might not be what 49er fans like to hear, but going 2-2 again over these next 4 games, that's completely possible, and it won't necessarily be a bad thing if that happens, because after this one there are 3 difficult games, a road game and 2 games at home. So all you have to do is just kind of stick around the 500 mark and win your home games and do well enough in the road games. And you also want to do well in your division games and your conference games. And so far, the 49ers are 0-1 in the division and 0-2 in the conference. So as far as the number 1 seed, that's becoming more and more difficult. And, at some point, the focus just has to be win the games you should and get in the playoffs and see where it goes from there.
Well, they have a chance in a week's time, and we all talk on Friday next week after the Seattle game on Thursday and the game on Sunday. They have a chance to be in first place in the NFC West, and I know they're not going to state that, but that's the goal, to win on Sunday, to get to 3-2 no matter what Seattle does, beat them on Thursday, both teams 4-2 after that game, and the Niners would be in first place and then worry about Kansas City and Dallas after that before the bye. I know you asked Brock Purdy some interesting questions the other day at the podium, actually yesterday. He's started 25 games in his NFL career, and obviously he's done incredibly well. Last year, his first full year as a starter, he's finished 4th in the NFL Most Valuable Player and took it right down to the end. He's 19-6 in those 25 games. Statistically, Matt, he has a lot of 49er records for 25 starts in a career. But the one that struck me, and I asked Kyle about it, it blows me away. Now that you're using a minimum of 25 starts in a career, most points per game by a starting quarterback since 1970. Tom Brady is 4th, 27.8 points a game. Lamar Jackson is 3rd, 28.2 points per game. Patrick Mahomes is 2nd, 28.7 points per game. And Brock Purdy is number 1 among everybody that's ever played, 29.7 points per game. I know you wrote about it.
Does he get credit for
Does
he get credit for the Fred Warner pick 6?
Yes, they all do. And Brady's defense has scored some points. Ty Law had some pick sixes as well, and Baltimore's as well, and Patrick Mahomes as well. But I mean, that's a number, Matt. He's scoring. It's 30 for Purdy. They're averaging 30 points a game with him in his first 25 starts at quarterback, the highest figure since the merger. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's. I'm obviously I won't be watching as it happens on Sunday, but I think it'll be interesting to hear what a very smart football person who's played that position, who entered as the 199th overall pick in the 2000 draft. It'll be interesting to hear what Tom Brady has to say about Brock Purdy, because I kind of get the sense that maybe the smarter you are about football, the more you appreciate what Brock Purdy has done. And, you know, we've talked a lot about Brock Purdy over those 25 starts in the regular season and six starts in the postseason. And, it's almost like what hasn't been said about him. And it runs the gamut, right? I mean, I think maybe the not so smart football people, trying to detract him, and he's a product of those around him or the offense or anything else. And the people who watch him are like, well, yeah, I mean, he does run the offense pretty well, but from my standpoint, what my eyes tell me is that he's also probably one of the best in the league at second reaction plays and making things happen that aren't on script. So he's like, probably the best in the league as far as running the offense, and he's among the best in the league as far as finding, pointing to an open spot and throwing it there for Kittle, or finding Brandon Aiyuk, running the back line of the end zone, or Juwan Jennings. So I'm just kind of curious to hear. It's too bad that Tom Brady is not allowed into practice facilities, and he's not allowed to watch practice because of the whole, looming Raiders ownership thing. Because I think it would be great for Brady to meet Purdy in a Saturday production meeting, talk X's and O's and just talk mindset with him, and then have Brady share some of those observations with the TV audience on Sunday. Because, I mean, obviously there are different styles of quarterbacks, but there's a lot of similarities, just how they handle themselves, the chip on the shoulder, the leadership, the just innate ability to play the game of football when you did not enter the NFL as a player that was coveted by all 32 teams. In fact, you weren't coveted by any of the 32 teams, really. When you think about if the Patriots knew that Tom Brady was anywhere near what he is or was, he wouldn't have been the 199th pick. They would have taken him in the first, second, third, or fourth rounds. And kind of the same goes for Purdy, is that if the 49ers had any inclination that he was going to be this good, they wouldn't have waited until 262.
That's a great point. By the way, what are you doing? Slacking? You don't have your 5 to watch, huh? What's going on?
I am slacking. I woke up this morning and I was like, dang. I had to read stuff and prep for this interview because, I have graphs and charts, and I have a whiteboard in front of me, and I'm scribbling notes of things like if Papa says this, do I agree with him, or do I say, you're just have another beer, Greg, or
Wow.
or something else.
Wow.
It takes me anywhere from 4 to 7.5 hours to prepare for this radio hit on Fridays.
Be honest, you're just having a heat stroke.
I totally understand.
And you live out where it's warm, but what are we looking at Sunday? Hottest game in the history of the stadium by far.
I think so. There was a game, I think it was 2003, where I remembered it being super hot at 49ers and the Cleveland Browns, and this was the expansion Cleveland Browns, I believe, with Tim Couch coming in.
Wow.
And I looked up the game book, and it only said 86 degrees at Candlestick Park, which I think at the time it might have been 3Com Park. But then I looked up some old stories, and it did say that it was 106 on the field for that game. And I remember it being scorching hot. So that would be the hottest game I remember the 49ers playing a home game here in the Bay Area. But, this one, I know it's always hot on the east side of the stands at Levi Stadium. So this one's going to be off the charts.
Yeah, no doubt. Matty, we'll see you on Sunday. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, and John, I know you talked about my floppy hat that I wear in the training camp.
I forgot about that. Did you have that yesterday?
Should I bring it to the game and
Log.
toss it up in the stand?
Log.
Absolutely.
Bring 20 of them and pass them out. We need them.
I remember, like I said, the first day I met you was at a Harbaugh training camp, and I think it was 2011 or something. And I was like, "Who's the guy with the hat?" And all of a sudden, it was Harbaugh's practice 3 hours later. I'm like, "God, I'd pay $1,000 for that hat." Right
I remember that because later in the day, you were walking around, and I saw some guy grab a bib, and thinking you were like this huge lobster he's ever seen.
I know. It's true, man. I got this pale skin, and it's just like I'm burned in 5 minutes, and I'm like, God, I would give anything for that hat right now.
People were pouring butter on you. At
Yeah,
that
I know.
point.
Unbelievable. Like, is this practice ever going to end? Oh, Harbaugh likes 3-hour marathon practices. My God, man. It's crazy. All right, man. We'll see you
All
on
right,
Sunday.
gentlemen. Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds
Stay
good.
cool,
Thanks, guys.
brother.
Yeah, that's the truth. That hat he has lasted the years, just like that Pacific T-shirt he wears to the first day of training camp every year. It's legendary. But yeah, I would have done anything for that hat. Harbaugh had those. That was old school. Those old practices. And that was, I think it was all dismissed first day. It was like, that dude, I was like, whoa, who's that guy?
Yeah, the one thing,
burned.
thank Coach Harbaugh for switching the 49ers sideline. And I think it would have been done anyway to obviously
Right.
get off the eastern side of the stadium and try to get on the shady side. But Arizona is going to be on that side. They are going to wear all white like they always do early in the year, and they did wear all white in Buffalo. But the one thing about them, they've been practicing in 110-degree weather for weeks, the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
So will their collective team body temperatures be more acclimated for the game? How much will that give them an edge? But the Niners, they can't wear white jerseys. They thought of it too late, so they're going to wear red jerseys and white pants and white socks. But Arizona will wear all white, but they're going to be on the sunny side of Levi's, just sitting in that sun all day long.
You brought up Brock Purdy and 25 starts. Let's do a little Brock through 25. We'll do that coming up next. It's Pop and Lund on your Friday, only here on the Sports Leader.
Now, from the O'Donnell Financial Group Sports Desk. Learn more at odfigroup.com. O'Donnell Financial Group, because planning is a process, not a product.